Ulman, please.
Thanks, Harry. Thanks for inviting me here. Like Michelle, I also am a practicing attorney, though most of my work these days is consulting businesses on public policy issues. But I was talking to John right before we started. The very first case I had in federal court was a small minority contractor who had been sued by a union. He had never signed a union contract, but what he had done is inherited a company, which is often the case in the construction industry, probably 3 times over before someone had signed a project labor agreement. And the union was suing him for back contributions to pension funds for years. And the only way they'd walk away from the case was if he agreed to be a union contractor. We didn't get very far. The judge told us, as I sat down at the bench, he said, go in the back room, settle this case. You have 15 minutes. I want to see you back out. Knowing the law and having reviewed the law, I had to tell the client that really under federal pension law, they pretty much did owe the back pension payments, and they were not going to be able to litigate this case successfully, and they should yield to the union's demands. And that's kind of what we're talking about here with respect to how this can really impact a company. This was a guy who had, purchased the company from his boss, who had purchased the company from his boss, and it had been handed down, and really had no real affiliation here with what had happened 10 years ago, but was forced out of business because of project labor agreements. So they can have a real impact, not only directly on what's going on with that specific project, but can be used as a weapon moving forward to push out smaller businesses and non-union businesses out of the competitive market. I kind of want to talk about this from the 30,000-foot level. We've talked about Employee Free Choice Act. We've talked about project labor agreements, which are union-only agreements for a project, as they seem, and Davis-Bacon. The 3 kind of fit together when you're talking about the current administration and their view moving forward of the economy. And I want to hit on some of the points. The president recently said that he feels that unions are not part of the problem, but part of the solution. And I think that goes, to his core beliefs here of what's going on with our economy. And part of his belief there is based on points of view put forward by his economists, Paul Krugman being one of them, which said, Krugman has said that wages have stagnated, and that's part of the problem with the economy. And he said that wage stagnation has led to a skewing of the distribution of wealth, and that's part of the problem with the economy. And that unions are the solution to reverting back to putting more money in workers' hands. I take issue with a couple of those points. I'm not going to get into them deep, but certainly when you look at compensation over the years and the numbers they're using for wage stagnation, they don't really fold in benefits. And obviously, as we all know here in this room, healthcare has taken a larger and larger chunk out of everyone's compensation as the years have gone on. And when you actually look at total compensation for workers and look at benefits, wages haven't total compensation has not stagnated over time and has kept pace with productivity. The other aspect of Krugman's statement that unions are a solution to the economy, if you look at Larry Summers' comments from the 1980s, he pointed out that actually increased union density can lead to higher unemployment, which is not something we're all looking forward to seeing at this point in time. So, if you look at the merits of those assertions, they're certainly questionable. But even if you take them on their face, that unions are part of the solution, I want to look at the methods that the administration and Congress are looking at for pushing unionization and whether they're legitimate when you look at the overall picture of what we're sacrificing, kind of at the altar of increased unionization. And as we talked about before, by forcing workers to vote, by signing a card in front of a union organizer, and other employees that may favor unionization, we're certainly sacrificing worker privacy for the cause of increased union density. I mean, there's no question here. That's what this does. So even if you believe that increased union density is a good thing, is it really worth sacrificing worker privacy out there? And I think that's one of the questions we all need to ask ourselves, particularly in light of the comments that Michelle put forward with respect to certain populations maybe being more vulnerable to attack. I mean, is this really something that this administration and this Congress should be pushing in the name of increased union density? Another thing, when you look at Employee Free Choice Act, again, is are we sacrificing workers' right to hear a full and robust debate about the pros and cons of unionization before they vote? And yeah, if you're collecting cards, and particularly in the small business setting, where the small business may not be sophisticated enough to pick up that union cards being passed around, that unionization could happen at a happy hour hosted by a union after work on a Friday. If you've only got 10 employees and 6 sign a card at a bar afterwards, well, then Monday morning you're a union company. And there's been no debate to the pluses or minuses of unionization, the aspects of what it means to be thrust into a failing union pension plan and what that might do to your company overnight and your job. I mean, so again, the second thing we're kind of sacrificing here when you look at the Employee Free Choice Act, again, whether you agree with increased union density being a solution to our economy